Get ready for the big revival. The real estate revival, that is. Now on 77 WABC, your New York weekend.
Get ready for the big revival.
It's Rand on Real Estate. With Greg Rand.
The big real estate revival. My name is Greg Rand. I'm your host on 77 WABC and WABCRadio.com. This is a show about building wealth despite this lousy recession we've all been living through. We have a great show on tap for you. We're going to zip around the country again this month, and we're going to show you two very different kinds of real estate investment markets. We're going to go up to the mountains in Colorado Springs, talk to an expert from that marketplace, and share with you what's happening there and how to read the tea leaves on what kind of opportunities are in places like that. And then we're coming back across to the East Coast to Atlanta, a place that has been just abused by the housing crisis, but we'll show you why that is not the whole story, why there's a big story, a big opportunity there as well, and actually give you some ideas of how you can go about taking advantage of it. We're going to get on the phone with that expert from Colorado Springs right after the break, but I want to get your calls in today. Your calls are the best part of the show, so get this number down, 800-848-WABC. That's 800-848-9222. And here's what I want you to ask me about. Of course, anything related to real estate is okay, but what have you been thinking about in terms of your retirement planning? Have you recognized the fact that real estate, being in a slump like it is, presents an opportunity, but you hear the news out there, and you can't quite get your brain around the idea that if everybody out there is so negative, you must be the only person who could be optimistic. You must be crazy. They must all be right. I think they're wrong. So give me a call, ask me about anything related to real estate investment, ask me about home ownership, but also tell me about your dreams, because that's the most fun for me, is talking about how you can secure your financial future, and I want to show you how to do that. But first, I have to give you your regular dose here, your regular dose of realistic optimism, because they were at it again in the last couple of weeks. The media, remember, they live in houses, and so by virtue of living in a house, they believe they are housing experts, right? I mean, that's, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce my co-pilot, Laura Smith. How are you?
That's okay. I'm just watching you dive right in after your vacation here.
Yeah. So they're always out there talking about housing like experts, right? You turn on CNBC and you see a panel, and there's a couple of economists and a couple of reporters and maybe a politician thrown in and maybe like a hedge fund CEO or something like that. And they talk about the housing market, and they all have such expertise. They're such armchair quarterbacks because they live in a house, and I guess because they go to work in an office building, they're also commercial real estate experts. But they don't know jack about this marketplace, and they prove it time and time again. And so this week what they're saying is there was a glimmer of good news in the housing market, because the home sales, I guess, in June were up a tick from May. And so the headlines, if you go out and look for them, you'll see things like, the Dow doesn't respond to the positive housing news, or positive housing numbers out. Does this mean we're poised for a recovery? And the answer is, we're poised for a recovery eventually, okay? But what the problem with the way that they analyze the market is that I know what's coming in the next 3 or 4 weeks. The housing numbers are going to come down again. They are, and here's why. You might recall that a year ago, there was a big government tax credit encouraging people to buy homes. You were going to get somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000 off of your tax bill if you bought a home between certain dates, okay? And the expiration of that landed right around the latter part of the summer. It was actually expiring on July 30th, and then they extended it for, I think it was 6 weeks. So the point is, there was a big rush of transactions that took place towards the end of last summer, which means when they compare this summer, which is actually slowly improving and slowly recovering, they're going to go from double dip recession 2 months ago to, oh my, is there a recovery today, to, oh no, triple dip recession or some other stupid thing they're going to come up with, which is just going to reopen the wound, all right? So I need to give you your dose of optimism. I need to give you another dose of Teflon, okay? You have to let this stuff roll off your back. You cannot listen to them. They do not have your best interests at heart. I don't know what their motivation is. The whole if it bleeds, it leads thing in the media always mystified me. I would really think if a station came out and optimism, I mean, this show is about optimism, and we're building an audience, so obviously optimism does play out there in the marketplace, but they're not doing that. They want to try to freak you out, and you just can't let them, because here's what I think. I think you've got a voice in your head and a sort of sense in your heart that you understand the housing market's going to recover. You understand how we got where we are right now. Okay, everybody went a little bit haywire during the roaring 2000s. Things got a little bit crazy. Prices got too inflated. Lending got too lax. And then we have a foreclosure crisis. So the foreclosure crisis is dragging us all down. every time the government gets involved, they make it worse. It sounds like they're starting to step away from trying to solve the housing crisis problems right now. But the bottom line is that you know it. The voice in your head is telling you the truth, that the housing market, while in pain today, is going to recover. And if you know what you do, that it's a long-term asset. There's no point in sitting here talking about what happened in June compared to May. It drives me insane. I mean, notice, like, Laura, since we sat down here and started broadcasting in the last 10 minutes, Apple stock has gone down and probably up again and down again and up again. You never hear anybody on Bloomberg say, I think Apple is headed for a big crash.
Right.
Why? Because it went down 8 minutes ago. Oh, my God, it went up again. Oh, wait, it's going back down again. I use this analogy a lot because everybody understands that Apple's on a roll right now. Everyone understands that if there was some kind of short-term bobbling of the stock price, nobody would look at that and read that as a trend. They know what it is. But the same exact analysts who recognize that on Wall Street look at housing and are trying to read the tea leaves by looking at these short-term sort of vibrations of the market. So take this to the bank. The market is not done correcting yet, okay? The Secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, a guy named Sean Donovan, who is the senior regulator and official in the federal government on housing, came out this week and said that he doesn't think prices are going to come down anymore. He thinks it's done. The correction in prices is over. I don't know how he could possibly say that. He's wrong. And so as the prices come down further this year, next year, you'll know that the senior most official in the federal government doesn't know enough about real estate, doesn't know as much as I do about real estate, and you can trust your friend Greg from Randon Real Estate because he doesn't get the fact that when you have a couple of million properties that are in the process of being foreclosed on, those properties are going to be taken back by the bank eventually. When the government lets them do it, they're going to go ahead and do it. They're going to put those properties on the market for a discounted price to unload them, and those properties tend to be entry-level properties, meaning they're the lowest price stuff in any given market. The combination of discounting and being lower price stuff in general is going to give us housing stats that show property values coming down some more. So he's nuts. I don't know what his motivation is. I think his motivation must be trying to give some good housing news out there to try to boost the administration's economic picture right now. That's the only thing that I can think of because I think he knows better. But don't buy into it. Don't take the bait when they tell you something is good because they're going to hit you across with a left cross next time with negative news. So understand you have to stand up tall. You have to look really, really far into the future. And what you're going to see is we're going to find a bottom. We're going to hang out there for a few years. And then when the overall economy revives, which is what happens in America, the real estate market's going to revive again. So you have to have that 10-year scope. Otherwise, stay clear of real estate investing because you'll drive yourself mad. So that's your steady dose of optimism, realism, and when we get back, we're going to take a couple of calls. Frank from Passaic, I'm going right to you when we get back, so stay here, and we're going to take a call from my friend out in Colorado Springs. You're on listening to Randon Real Estate on 77 WABC. Back in a minute. Welcome back to Randon Real Estate. I'm Greg Rand, your host on 77 WABC and WABCRadio.com. My website is ownamerica.com. That's Own America like you should own America. How cool is that? That when you buy a piece of real estate, you're actually buying a piece of the country that you love. I'm going to give the number out again here, 800-848-WABC. That's 800-848-9222. We have calls coming in, and I want to go over to Frank from Passaic, New Jersey. How are you, Frank?
Yeah, hi, Greg and Laura. I love your show.
Thank you.
And your website is terrific, too. Very helpful.
I appreciate that. So you had a question about a couple of different places. You're thinking about two different markets?
I'm 3 years from retirement, and I'm really excited about the prospect of getting a place in Florida that would be for, in the short run, go 3-4 times a year on vacation and let family members go there, like a 2-bed, 2-bath condo type unit in the Delray Beach area.
Okay.
And in the long term, it would be for a permanent retirement place. But I also think that Delaware would be for cost of living better, and it has accessibility to nice beaches also, although the season is a lot shorter in that state. And I wondered what you think. Ideally, I would like to have a small place in Florida and a small place in Delaware. I have $45,000 cash now that I could invest in real estate in one or two places. do you think a big place in Florida, a bigger place in Delaware, or like small condo type 55 plus in both?
All right, well, it's a good question. There's a couple of good questions in there. First thing is the fact that you're 3 years from retirement means that you're looking at that place in Florida with a fairly short-term mindset that you want to be getting down there a lot more every year. You'll go a couple times a year, and then you're going to want to go down there for the entire season, it sounds like, right, within 5 years.
Absolutely.
So in that kind of situation, the play of which market to buy in where you could rent it out and get a positive cash flow and then ride the appreciation up into the future doesn't really apply. This is really a personal preference thing for you in terms of where you're going to go and want to spend your time. Delray Beach, Florida is one of the markets in Florida that many of the markets in Florida suffered from the same thing, which is there was an overdevelopment in South Florida. The overdevelopment coupled with too many speculators going in and buying those newly developed units. A lot of them were condos near the waterfront. And then because they got no money down mortgages when the market didn't go the way they wanted to, they just flaked out and ran away, left a lot of these developers holding the bag, left a lot of properties competing for whatever buyers would be out there. What I'm hearing from my friends in Florida is that the market is finally, after 4 years, heating up pretty good. And the reason why it's heating up is one reason. People cannot resist the bargains that are available down there right now. So what I think you'll find in Delray Beach, I like to play for Delray Beach because I like the fact that because you're not going to be renting it out, then you got to find a place that you're going to want to be in. All right, it's not a straight investment. It's really kind of a home ownership, second home, moving to home ownership play. The question on Delaware is a different one. That's where if you're going to buy something for year-round rental, you're going to rent it out to somebody else. That person's going to pay your mortgage down, pay your mortgage off if you have one. What I like about Delaware is that it really did see a pretty steep appreciation curve. The average price in the state of Delaware went from about $140 to about $240 between 2001 and 2006. And now it's corrected back, and it's come down something between 180 and 190, all right? So it kind of held its own. And one of the things, and you mentioned my website, Own America, if you go there and you go to the button on the right-hand side that says Research Tools, you're going to find that some of these tools we built for you, some of these tools somebody else built, and I just linked to them because they're so cool. One of the things we do is we look at migration patterns. Because if you can see a place that is growing in population, people are going there, that tells you what's happening. Then you want to find out why. But if you go into these counties in Delaware, very interesting thing comes out of that. You're going to see that Delaware is pulling population from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York. It's not a national migration happening into Delaware. It's like regional. And so I want to scratch a little bit deeper to find out what's going on down there. Is it a low-cost state? You mentioned the cost of living is really attractive. Tell me about that.
I heard on Kiplinger's and some other sources that for cost of living, it's supposed to be the most desirable retirement place in the union because of very low, I think there's a very low state income tax, there's no sales tax, and the property taxes and insurance rates are very low.
Okay, so it always comes down to that. When a place, I always approach this when I'm looking at a market that I'm not that familiar with, or even if I'm familiar with it, I want to see how it's faring now compared to just a few months ago. I want to look at what's happening first and then try to figure out why. Okay, what's happening in Delaware is property values have held during the recession. What's happening in Delaware is that it's pulling people like crazy out of just the states north of it. So it's almost like, if what you're saying is retirement is a big part of the why, people are going for a better cost of living, what that tells me is they don't want to be that far away from their kids and grandkids. They're retiring, but they're retiring near enough by where they don't have to wind up hopping an airplane every time they want to bounce Junior on their knee,
Yes.
Is that one of the things you're thinking about, Frank, doing a retirement thing in Delaware instead of Delray Beach?
No, I'm indifferent. I could go either place. It's really almost like a flip of the coin. The only thing that's holding me with the Delaware is the annual cost of living is far more attractive because of the low taxes in Delaware versus Florida. But the real estate to get in is so attractive in Florida. You can get, I think that there's some two-bed, two-bath condos in that Delray Beach area. You could get furnished for like between 15 and 20 that don't need a lot of work done. So I'm torn.
Well, here's what, and listen, this is something you're going to decide to do on your own. It sounds like you're fairly committed sort of emotionally to the Delray Beach thing, and you're absolutely right. You going in and buying at those kind of price points, you cannot go wrong because there is a migration pattern down to that part of Florida that's not going to quit. It's not going anywhere. So if you want to give me a shout, and we could talk about this offline because I don't like giving armchair advice and telling you, well, this is what I think you should do, Frank. I don't know you well enough. But you can email me at greg@ownamerica.com. We can talk more about it. But I think you found two places that you're not going to go wrong in either one. It's a hard choice because you picked two good choices. So I think you're doing the right thing, Frank. So thanks for calling.
Thank you very much,
Now,
Greg.
let's bring on my buddy, the Big Joe Clement from Remax Properties in Colorado Springs. How you doing, Joe?
Good, Greg. How you doing today?
Good. Thanks for waiting for us. So,
No problem. It's interesting to hear Frank.
all right, cool. Yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about now with Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs, I want you to tell my listeners
Yes.
where it is. I mean, I know something about it, but I find it really interesting how late in the game Colorado Springs was developed, compared to people in New York who are used to this place all being built back in the
Yeah.
1800s. Colorado Springs is a fairly new city, isn't it?
Well, we were discovered by William Palmer and Zebulon Pike back in 1868. But the big growth came here in the 80s and 90s and the last 10, 15 years. We really have grown. We're now 622,000 population. We are located 65 miles south of Denver. We're the second largest city in Colorado. We're in the foothills, so it's gorgeous. The Front Range is right here at our doorstep.
Well, that's amazing. Let me just jump in because that whole thing, I saw a presentation on Colorado Springs where they explained, like when you said the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you meant
Right.
the 1970s, 80s, and
Yeah.
90s, not the 1870s, right?
Yeah, no, there was a lull there for many, many years. Where it was a small little sleepy community. People would come here way back in the day for their health because the air is so clean. And there was back in the days of tuberculosis, we had some hot springs where people come out and sit in hot springs to get healthy and things like that. That was our early beginnings. But now, thriving city, we have lots of military, lots of defense, lots of high tech. And we're real big with the Olympic Training Center here, with a lot of governing bodies. USA Hockey is here, USA Swimming is here, USA Basketball, those kind of things. So big in the nonprofits and the sports world with the United States Olympic Training Center here. So it's a wonderful city. It's a matter of fact, if anybody wants to see it live on TV, go to NBC TV right now and tomorrow and watch the Ladies LPGA Open Championship right here at the Broadmoor Hotel, about a mile and a half down the road from where I'm sitting. And
That's some pretty good entertainment, the ladies PGA. Isn't it?
they listen. Those girls are wonderful. I've been out there for 2 days watching. I mean, their swings are so pure and so perfect. I'm so jealous. And they hit the ball a mile, and they're just these little tiny things. And it's just, you go, wait a minute, I got to stop trying to kill the ball. But more than that, you could get a little flavor of what it looks like because it's on ABC TV. Excuse me, NBC TV today and tomorrow.
So let me ask you a question. Now, I didn't know about the Olympic thing. So when you have these different sporting entities, industry players
Right.
that are locating there, they're like moons revolving around the Olympic thing, right?
Yeah, we have the training center and the United States Olympic Committee here, right in downtown Colorado Springs. So
Interesting.
we really have a nice little business with that, and we're fortunate here at Remax Properties. We do a lot of work with those guys and finding them their homes and selling their homes and stuff. So we're lucky to have such great people to work with. Yeah, that's a big plus.
Those kind of anchors mean a lot. So, so
They
what
do.
what we just talked about with Frank is this process that we go through at Own America where we look at a market and kind of go top down, figure out what's happening, and then try to figure out why. So what I've done, so for people listening, if they wanted to be able to follow along with the visuals that I'm talking about verbally here, on ownamerica.com on my blog, I put a blog post up called Radio Show Prep for July 9th. Okay, and what it's got is all the graphs and charts that I was looking at leading up to today's show. I figured I'd throw them all in here so that if anybody wanted to, when they got finished listening or while they were listening, wanted to see what I'm trying to describe. What I've got here is a Colorado Springs sales price chart for 10 years.
Okay.
And what I'm looking at is you started the cycle at $160,000 average sale price. You peaked in 2007 at $220,000, and you've come back down to like $190,000.
You're right. You're right on. The numbers I have in front of me is in 2006 we were $225 median price. Today we're $185. So it's a great time here to buy, as it is in other places, of course. But here's the thing with us, Greg. We did not have 20-30% appreciation year after year, like many, Southern California, Florida, and some of these areas across the country, Arizona, that just had this 20-30% year after year after year. Ours was 6, 7, 8% appreciation, steady all the way through.
Right, so you didn't have that big of a party. And where we left off, we were talking about how you were one of those markets that didn't really see a crazy party during the Roaring 2000s. You guys saw, what'd you say, 4 to 6% when everybody else was getting 12 and 15?
Right. Annually, yeah.
Which is really double the national average under normal circumstances, but it was, the headline cities were Vegas and Phoenix and New York and LA. They were getting 15, whatever. So that's beautiful. You didn't party too hard. Now you don't have a hangover.
Right. It's not bad now. I mean, we're lower now. We're 185 median price versus 225. But I just want to tell the listeners what you get for 185 here, Greg. You're 1,800 to 2,200 square feet. You're 3 to 4 bedrooms, 2 baths at least, 2-car garage, nice neighborhood. Taxes on that same product would be like 1,400, 1,300, 1,200 a year. Not
okay. I have to get back up off the floor now. You're talking to people in New York and New Jersey where that same house is about 2 or 3 times the price with, I think, 10 times the taxes.
Yeah, the taxes. I mean, the taxes here are wonderful. Your utilities are wonderful. It's a great. We have a lot of retirees here because our cost of living is very, very low. We do have a state income tax. It's only 4.56 or 6.5 or something like that on your Schedule C, and it's not that bad. We do have sales tax. It's 7.1%, something like that. But across the board, the real estate is really attractive.
Yeah, so we talked about the prices have held. I'm looking at, and I also put a link on my blog, the Show Prep blog, that shows the migration pattern. I know Joe and I, we both love this chart.
I love it.
This chart shows you can pick any county in America, and it will show you lines graphically of people coming in and going out. And what I'm looking at with El Paso County, Colorado, which is your county, is a lot of movement, all right? You're pulling people from every major metro area in the country, but you're also pulling them from some places that I don't recognize, like places in Texas that aren't major cities. So what is that? What is the big draw?
Military.
Military.
That's probably Fort Hood, Texas, where we've got a lot of the Fort Hood guys coming up here for Fort Carson, and so some of that could be an Air Force base because we've got Peterson Air Base here, we got NORAD, we got the Air Force Academy, we got Schriever Air Force Base. I mean, we have a ton of military in this.
All right, so that's a big. So what I see with this chart is not just people coming in, but people coming in and going out. And what that tells me is that you must have a pretty robust rental market because people that are coming in and they're job transferees, they don't always buy the first time. They rent for some period of time. If they stick around, they then buy. Tell me about that. Are you able to get a positive cash flow, i.e. rent the place out for more money than it costs to own it?
That's exactly what we do here. We've got a great investor market here because of all the things we just talked about. Plus, the rents you can get cover the cost, give us some cash flow. A lot of times these military guys will come in. They don't want to buy. They can't buy. They didn't sell their house down in Fort Hood. They rented it. So it's just not doable to buy. So they rent, and they don't want to rent an apartment. They've got the wife and kids, and they don't want to rent an apartment, so they want to rent a house. And they rent a single-family house, $900, $1,100, $1,000 a month, $1,200 a month, whatever, covers the nut, get a little cash flow, but a lot of times they'll sign a 2 or 3 year lease because they know their term is going to be here 2 to 3 or 4 years with the military, and then they bounce to some other city or overseas or whatever, and it works out quite well. So we really do well with our investment properties here in Colorado Springs.
See, that's why I love the fact that we met and that I've learned so much about your market because it's one of those places that everybody in the country has heard of Colorado Springs, but you never hear about it when they talk about the housing numbers. You hear about Vegas and Phoenix, which are also places with great potential, but for different reasons. So I want listeners to understand that there are these second-tier cities from the standpoint of their size, they're second tier, but from the standpoint of their appeal and the migration of jobs there and people there, they're really phenomenal places to take up to place a bet. Basically, to place a bet. If you look at Colorado Springs, if there is nothing about your city that seems shaky to me or risky, like maybe NORAD's going to move out. NORAD's not going to move out. NORAD's,
it's been here.
Yeah, and NORAD, for those of you who don't know, maybe you've only heard of it from the movies, that's those big antennas that I guess they communicate with.
Well, they track everything in the sky.
Right.
Everything in the sky gets tracked through NORAD, whether it's Santa Claus or a space shuttle. I mean, everything is tracked.
And you need a high mountain for that. Is the point? And they're not going to go. They're not moving that thing to the desert because they need a tall mountain to put that antenna on.
And it's inside the mountain, and the mountain is made out of granite, and that was designed that way back in the days when we were in the Cold War and whatnot, where they were worried about someone
bomb-proof,
bombing it or something, and I live like at the foot of that mountain, and so if they did, I'd be gone. But that's those.
But they won't because they won't bother.
No,
So
they
anyway.
won't, no, because they can't get. It doesn't work. I mean, So anyway, no, our investment market's good. The other thing, our distress side, we've got distressed properties here, like in another city. We've got foreclosures, bank owns, as you know, Greg. We have a HUD contract with HUD, so we get a lot of great values from those distressed properties. Right now, our distressed properties in the cities run right around 20-25%, which
Okay.
ironically is about the amount of properties we're selling to investors. So guess what they're buying? They're buying those.
We're buying
kinds
a
of
place,
properties.
right? So that's it. Like I talk a lot about the
Yep.
the mixing board of wealth. Okay,
Yeah.
Turning up every dial a little bit. So you buy a place that's a good place that has good future potential, but it's discounted right now. And you buy
That's
a
right.
property that's a good property, but it's also discounted. Now you're turning all these dials up a couple of ticks. So they can reach you. My listeners can reach you, Joe, at joeclement.com, right?
Yep, that's correct. That's our website. That's got all those HUD properties and all my high-end properties and everything on there. And my email address is on there.
Okay, and also I have a link to your site from that blog posting I've been talking about, but Joe Clement, JoeClement.com.
Yep.
Joe, I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. Thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Greg, thanks for having me. Say hi to Dan.
Hey, Dave from close to New Jersey. How are you?
Good afternoon, Greg. How are you?
Very, very good. Thanks for staying on hold. What do you got?
Not at all. I value your opinion. You had a caller a few minutes ago was talking about Delray Beach, Florida, so it kind of reminded me to call you.
Okay.
I am 63. Been in this house about 25 years. It has about $5,000 left on the mortgage. And, of course, real estate is not terrific right now in New Jersey. And we own 2 condos in Delray Beach. Both of them are rented at profit, so we have positive cash flow.
I will.
Okay, buddy.
All right, take it easy.
Thanks. See you soon.
Question is to move down there, sell this house, and throw out one of the tenants, giving up the income, or would you recommend just renting this house, moving down there anyway if we wanted to, and buying something separate? And that way we retain the investment in this house in New Jersey. What's your opinion?
Well, first, my opinion is that I love what you've been doing all these years of accumulating this little portfolio of real estate. I'm sure that's one of the things that lets you sleep at night, that even though there's a housing crisis going on, you've got equity because you've been hanging on to these things for a long time.
Yeah, they've been a long time, and as I said, they're both rented at positive cash flow, so we're quite pleased with that.
So the issue in Closter is that you'll be able to generate positive cash flow in Closter because you don't have a mortgage, barely have a mortgage left there.
Yeah, the taxes are about $1,000 a month. That's the only real expense.
So that's what's going to come down to. If you do,
mortgage
I would recommend doing a side-by-side comparison. Look at what you could get for the house in Closter,
Yeah.
and then look at what you could do with that money down in Florida. Okay, because you said if you're going to head down there and you're going to be down there, then all of a sudden the Closter property becomes something that's sort of hanging in the back of your mind that you have to be concerned about. So do a side-by-side comparison and say, if I've got X number of dollars in point A and X number of dollars in point B, which one's going to generate more positive cash flow for me, and which one do I think over the next 5 and 10 years is going to give me more appreciation? I suspect that you're going to find that Florida is going to look better than Closter in that regard.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
That's surprising, but okay, very good.
Tell me why it surprises you. You know more about the properties than I do. So
Because Florida really hasn't been going anywhere. In fact, we bought a condo recently for about a little under $300,000. That people paid $500,000 a year before. So we've been doing pretty well. But Florida's really not gone, I don't know, terribly high.
not in the last couple of years it hasn't, but you represent a trend, okay? You represent, there's a whole lot of people just like you within the sound of my voice who are coming out of New York and going down to Florida. And that demand is demand. I mean, listen, there's always going to be enough population in and around New York to justify owning real estate in and around New York. It's not like because we're losing people that somehow we're not going to have enough people. We have prices are what they are because there's such high demand for real estate to be here where all the jobs are and everything else.
It's a very diverse economy here.
Yeah, so it's pretty much as bulletproof as it gets from that standpoint. But the thing about Florida is just that idea that when you've got 72 million baby boomers that are reaching retirement age, the biggest proportion of them are in the New York area, and the biggest proportion of them are going to the east coast of Florida. What you've got is a pattern that is unmistakable. I think, again, just like Frank earlier in the show, you picked 2 good places, and so you're giving yourself a hard choice, and I think that's a great way to live. Give yourself as many difficult choices as you can, meaning you're choosing between 2 awesome outcomes, and you can't quite figure out which one. You may wind up being a coin flip. But do the side-by-side comparison. If you want, email me also. I'll help you do that, Greg@ownamerica.com. We'll crunch some numbers on 2 different scenarios, and look at them side by side and see if one of them jumps out at us. If neither of them do, then you do whatever one makes you more comfortable.
I thank you very much. Thank you for your input.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. This is Rand on Real Estate. I'm Greg Rand on 77 WABC and WABCRadio.com. Give me a call. We have one more segment left to go. I want to hear from you. 800-848-WABC. That's 800-848-9222. Let's talk about real estate. Back in a minute. Welcome back to Rand on Real Estate. I'm Greg Rand, your host on 77 WABC. We've got time for one or two more calls, 800-848-9222. And I want to remind you that this show is podcast. You can listen to it after today or pass it around to your friends and put it up on Twitter or whatever you want. That's at WABCRadio.com. You can also see video of the show being recorded at ownamerica.com. And ownamerica.com is the site I want to make sure you know all about here. We've got video courses for potential investors, people that want to learn more about this. 1 hour I can go over little bits and pieces, but we have a multi-hour video course on there that's free for you if you want to learn more about the wealth building potential and the techniques that professional investors use. We've got a lot of information on there. My book, Crash Boom, published by Career Press, is available. You can get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or you can get it right there on ownamerica.com. But if this is something that you're interested in, that's why we created this company. That's why the show is here. That's why the book is there. That's why the courses are there. And we have some really fun analysis tools on the site that you can plug in. We have something called the case study calculator. You can plug in the basic purchase information and cash flow information on the property and look at 30-year projections on cash flow, equity, and return on investment. So that's what I'm going to do with, I think it was Dave we just talked to a moment ago, who wants to compare a property in New Jersey with a property in Florida. We're going to plug those numbers into the case study calculator and look out 30 years and see if the assumptions we plug in hold true, which one of those things is going to win the horse race. So I want to talk about Atlanta just briefly with you. Atlanta is a market that has this unbelievable combination of being assaulted by the housing crisis. It was just one of those places that got so beat up by overdevelopment, overspeculation. They built a lot of housing complexes and housing developments, luxury housing developments, entry-level housing developments, condo and townhouse complexes, and they just got caught flat-footed when the market turned. And so speculators, the same story you've been hearing me tell about Phoenix and Vegas and Florida is happening in Atlanta, except for the fact that Atlanta is not relying on migration of baby boomers. It's not relying on, like Vegas is, a new job scenario being created. Atlanta has all that. Atlanta's growth, the reason why it was so attractive to developers and lenders and investors during the roaring 2000s is still intact. The southeast United States is sucking population from all over the country. And greater Atlanta, like 70% of the population of Georgia are in the greater Atlanta area. It is an epicenter of industry, an epicenter of some media. It's just a really, really strong city. And it's getting kicked around so hard right now that we put a deal together. I met a company called Maverick Real Estate Investors. And what Maverick represents is an industry, what's called turnkey investment services. What they do is because we're here in New York and because the property here in New York is pretty expensive, you look around the country, you hear these calls that we have here. Talk to Joe in Colorado. He's talking about $120,000 houses. Talking to a guy who bought a place in Florida for $25,000. It blows your mind that these prices are so low. Other places in the country, the rents have kept up and the prices have come down. And so you can buy in a place like Atlanta and generate 10, 12% a year return on your investment just by virtue of the positive cash flow. And because you're buying in a great American city that's getting kicked around right now, you have that added dimension of appreciation coming to you, in my opinion. So if you go again to ownamerica.com, go to the blog, you'll see the chart on Atlanta. You'll see the migration map on Atlanta, and I've got a link there for you because what Maverick Investor Group has done is put together a selling event, an investing event. They have got properties on the market right now, turnkey properties. Turnkey means it's already been bought, it's already been rehabbed, there's already been a tenant put in and a lease signed, and it's already set up with property management. So you can be a New Yorker and you can buy a property in Atlanta and you don't actually have to go there. Okay, I think it's a good idea to go there and take a look at it, but you don't actually have to because you'll have somebody reliable who manages hundreds or thousands of properties in the Atlanta area managing your property as well. You plunk down, the price of these things are between $50,000 and $60,000, And so I want you to go to my site, and you'll see at the bottom of that posting the Maverick Investor Group link. If you go there and you use the deal code Greg Rand, all that's in the blog posting here, use the deal code Greg Rand, you can watch a 1-hour webinar where they explain the opportunity and actually show you the properties. If this is of interest to you, this is a way for you to get out of New York, invest in American housing in the places where the opportunities are the greatest, but not have to be a landlord, which we know drags a lot of people down. So go to ownamerica.com, go to the blog, go to the show prep blog, scroll down, find the Maverick Investor Group link, check out the webinar. If you want to ask me questions, again, you can always email me at greg@ownamerica.com. But I've got Bruce on the line from Long Island. How you doing, Bruce?
Hi, how are you, Greg?
Thank you for calling and staying on hold. What can I do for you?
My pleasure. I own several properties here in New York, in Long Island, and for some reason, I'm interested in Jacksonville, Florida. I saw a particular property I'm interested. A few years ago, it was listed. It sold in the high 4s. Now it's in the high 2s. And I'm thinking of this as a possible place to go during Christmas vacation, Easter vacation, February break kind of thing, but also possibly renting it out during the other times of the year. And I heard you just talking about these properties in Atlanta. I was wondering, first of all, your opinion about Jacksonville. The reason I like the idea of Jacksonville is because it's possibly drivable in a couple of days rather than having to take the plane.
Right.
And it's, of course, several degrees warmer in the wintertime, which is an interest of mine during those breaks.
There's also Jacksonville is an interesting market because if you look at what we always look at with Jacksonville, it's kind of like a lighter version of Florida from the standpoint of it's not as busy. A lot of people, if you look at the migration patterns in Jacksonville, it's pulling as many people from South Florida as it is from New York.
Oh.
You know, it's again, go to the site and take a look at that migration pattern. It's really interesting. When you talk to people who have done that, they say that the northeastern coast of Florida is kind of like the way Florida used to be in the South, meaning it's gotten too darn busy down there, okay? Mm-hmm. Too many New Yorkers have gone down to South Florida, and they're driving the people who now consider themselves Floridians out, but they don't want to leave Florida, so they're going up to the eastern coast. They're going to, the Cape Canaveral area, Vero Beach, all the way up through Jacksonville. So there's the feedback that I've gotten on Jacksonville is that it's got a quality of life element. So it has the best of Florida in terms of climate, the best of Florida in terms of the long-term demographic potential of demand for the real estate, but it's also got something different going for it. It's a little bit like maybe the west coast of Florida. That was very appealing to a lot of folks 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because the west coast wasn't as busy as the east coast. I think up north is the new hot coast, and eventually it'll be the Panhandle. That'll be the last place in Florida you can go to get a little bit of elbow room.
Do you know if you're able to rent during the course of the year, but not have, like a management company that you were talking about in Atlanta, do they exist in Jacksonville so that I could utilize the home during those 4 weeks of the year?
Now, which 4 weeks? That's an interesting question. Which 4 weeks do you want to use it again?
Well, probably the time that everybody else wants to use it.
Right.
We're talking Christmas time, and we're talking. I'm a teacher, so the February break.
Okay, so you're taking your breaks when everybody else is also.
Right.
Here's the thing about that is that in those markets, you could get a tenant to rent it 12 months a year and give you positive cash flow if it were a straight investment, but it's not. It's something you want to use also.
Right.
Which means the likelihood of you being able to get the possibility of getting a positive cash flow on a vacation property in Jacksonville is going to rely on the fact that you don't go there during the hot season. Right. You'd have to be going there during the summer. I just came from Charleston. It's 95 degrees. People who own, so in other words, you're going to be in a situation where you probably can't count on being able to cover your expenses if you're going to use it like that.
I didn't really care that much if it was positive cash flow. I was just looking.
The question is, could you? Yes, you could. The answer is yes, you could. The season in Jacksonville is going to be all the way from Thanksgiving all the way to Easter, probably, just like the other parts of Florida. So thank you. I got to cut this off. Thank you for the call, Bruce. I hope that was helpful to you. You're listening to Rand on Real Estate. This is brought to you by Own America, ownamerica.com. We're at 77 WABC. My name is Greg Rand. You can reach me over there. Come to the site, buy the book, take the course, engage with us. The voice in your head is telling you the right thing. This is the time to be thinking about investing in real estate. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, but when are we going to hear you again?
The second Saturday of every month.
There you go. Want to make sure people can put that on their calendar. Great show.
Thank you.